Hi everyone, I'm Angie, partner and marketing VP at Growing, a women-founded and women-led creative agency. Today, I'm thrilled to welcome you to another edition of our initiative, Women Who Network, Stories of Connection and Success. As I always say, networking has played a key role in my career, and I have found through many conversations that it is an area that many women still don't feel confident in or need a little push to be encouraged to explore further. At Growing, we're motivated to inspire and empower women to feel more confident in networking, and we believe that by sharing stories and experiences, we can encourage them to connect and grow together. I'm super excited to introduce our special guest today, Charlotte. Thank you so much for joining us and for being part of this initiative. I'm confident that your story will motivate many women to embrace networking with more confidence. Please let us know more about you. Can you introduce yourself to our community?
Thank you, Angie. I'm so thrilled to be here. Appreciate that kind intro. So my name is Charlotte Amouy Adjchavanich. I am a global beauty expert. I'm very much a diversity and inclusivity champion as well. I have been very blessed to work in the beauty industry for over 20 years. I started my career in London and I'm now based here in New York City. I'm someone who really advocates and champions women-led businesses. So it's wonderful to have met you, Angie, this year. Definitely a highlight in my networking path and journey. So thank you so much for having me, Angie. And I love what Croying and your whole agency is doing.
Thank
Bravo.
you so much, Charlotte. Well, let's start. This question we ask because we want to inspire more women. And sometimes when you're starting to network and do stuff like that, you think that everyone that's already doing it saw success from the beginning or are naturally extroverted. So that's why they do it. And you start building excuses for you to not have to do it. So this first question is, when did you start networking and how has your perspective evolved from where you first started to now?
Great, thank you. So this was a great question that I really had to think about because I started thinking about even when I was in elementary school, you network and you build your network. I think you build your network because you want to make friends first and foremost. However, to that point, I just want to raise before anything the most important thing that people need to understand that when you network, you have to categorize the people who you're meeting. Sometimes you will make a friend, but sometimes you will have a colleague or an industry peer or a industry contact, and you have to make sure you segment them mentally because I made the mistake in the beginning of thinking everyone is my friend, and it wasn't until I later in life when I met my husband, he said to me, "Why do you feel bad about that person? They're a work person." And he goes, "You treat everyone like your friend." And so I just wanted to sort of kind of level like explain that to kind of level playing field that in people's heads so that when they approach networking, they don't think of it as, oh, that person actually wasn't that nice to me. They're not acting like a friend. You have to remember they're not your friend. They are a networking contact, a contact who, if it is meant to be, can become your friend. So I wanted to sort of level set there. But to answer your question, Angie, when did I first start networking? I would say I seriously started networking when I moved to London because I was born in the States. I moved to London. I didn't know people in my work industry. I had friends, but I did not have work colleague and industry peers. So I would go to these events, industry events, and you oftentimes run into the same people where you end up sitting at the same table with them or be in the same area. So you say hello, but you're not working together. And I met a wonderful girl who her name is Natalie Buckley. Her name is Natalie Savage now. And we became very close and we were doing the same thing. So I was doing beauty PR at an agency. She was also doing beauty PR at an agency. We'd always run into each other at different events and we decided to connect and we decided that we wanted to bring more people into our little group. And at that time, there was a TV show called Absolutely Fabulous. It's a British show. If you haven't, people, I think some older people know it. Because it's British, it has come to America. But basically, the premise of that is one of the women, Adina, she was a PR person. And so we called our little group Ab Fab Jollies. So that's a very British thing. So every British people love to shorten things for absolutely fabulous. Everyone called it Ab Fab. And then we'd call it a jolly because British people, when you're having fun, they say, "Oh, let's
Fun.
go and have a jolly." So we started that and we started organizing dinners with about 6 to 8. to 10 women, also beauty industry peers, and we started booking really cool restaurants that we would go to so that we all could, have an experience. And we also always brought a goodie bag from our brands, and we did what we called swapsies. So to me, that was the best way to network, make industry friends and colleagues. And to this day, I'm still in touch with pretty much everyone who used to come to our AbFab Jollies. And they grew from 6 to 10 to maybe 15, 20 people. And then we actually started inviting journalists, and it became friendly but networking at the same time.
That's so cool. Congrats on that. I love these types of communities that can be formed between peers. And I love that you had those goodie bags. I know that when I go to an event, be that small or big, I love that because, it gets you going. It's like the outfit, something that you're not like, it's not specifically tied to networking, but when you're feeling great and then you have this goodie bag and this stuff is like the icing on the cake. And it's really cool that communities get formed like that. And also that you could see that it was something cool to do. It's not so serious and it's not, but an
Exactly.
opportunity to connect. And I want that as well because sometimes networking, like the word even can be kind of daunting. But when you understand that it's about forming community, making industry friends, finding things in common, I think we can give it a more friendly approach and more
Indeed.
people can start doing it because they
Yeah.
don't feel that it's so serious and they can start. So thank you so much for that. And what do you do to establish genuine and meaningful connections when you network?
So my strategy is I always try to read the room in terms of whoever I meet. So you can definitely see people, at events, and a lot of times they're just standing there by themselves. So I'm really quite extrovert. So I have no problem to go over to someone and introduce myself. So I'd say my strategy to establish genuine and meaningful connections are one, once you meet someone, I try to find common ground with them. So obviously, you start with a little bit of small talk about, oh, hi, what are you doing here? What's your connection to this event or person? And then, I will ask them more personal questions, but nothing too personal. So things like, where do
Mm.
you live? So as I mentioned, I live in New York, but, New York is a big place. So do you live in Brooklyn? Do you live in Staten Island? Do you live in Westchester, etc.? And then you kind of just start a dialogue. And then usually I can find some common ground. So kind of, for example, you and I were just chatting about your 2-year-old and to your baby, and I have a 2-year-old puppy. And so it's those little things that you can follow up with, when you start to build your relationship with
Uh,
somebody. So, I studied some psychology when I was at university. So I also tried to understand the human being. So is this person really friendly? Or are they more shy? So is this person very formal? They're a bit older? Would they appreciate a handwritten card to send to them? And because, I work in beauty, a lot of times I follow up with a gift, a product to send to someone, and, I'll ask them for their address. I'd love to send you something. And that usually is a nice way to establish a connection. And then, I also think it's very important to try to see them again in real life within the first sort of 90 days so that you stay top of mind, so that you don't become someone who's just, oh, I met that
yeah.
person, if that person is useful to you. So again, strategically, you have to understand you don't need to do that with every single person. If you meet someone who you feel will be beneficial to the work that you're doing, you make more of an extra effort. But I also think strategically, anything from, the communication, it needs to be really important, whether you send a physical card, you send an email, or you send a text message, and you start engaging like that, and maybe you ask for you exchange social media accounts, etc.
No, that's amazing. And what's the most unexpected opportunity that has come from a networking event or connection?
So this is a really good question because I've met a ton of people. So again, in beauty, you establish your network of not just journalists and industry peers, but also, influencers or tastemakers or people who are considered opinion formers. So for me, very important people are people who work in fashion, and beauty, like hairdressers, makeup artists, fashion stylists, etc., because they're the ones who will use your product and advocate for your products. So for me, I have an amazing network of makeup artists who have also become very friendly with me and have become real friends. But you also have ones who you just know that you can call upon when you have jobs. And the same for hairdressers. So London was the first place to launch Kiehl's outside of the US when L'Oreal had acquired Kiehl's. And after we
Mm.
established the UK, we then launched into Ireland. So when I went to Ireland, I met all the journalists there and was networking with them, introducing the products, and they all said to me, "We know about Kiehl's because of James Mooney, and he's a celebrity hairdresser." And back in the day, for people who don't know this, you could only get Kiehl's if you came to New York or if you had someone from New York who could bring it over to you. So it was a very much a word of mouth product that you could not get. And so James Mooney is a very successful hairstylist. He's Irish, but he was living in New York, so he used to have a lot of Kiehl's products. He'd always use them on the celebrity clients and all the journalists. So I thought, okay, well, I need to meet this guy. So I gave some cards to the journalists, and actually one of the journalists gave the card to James. When he came to London, he called me and he said, "I heard you're the new Kiehl's PR. Super exciting. Would love to meet you." So we met for a cup of tea. I thought, this is great. I keep hearing about this guy. I need to add him to my network list. I brought him some products. We had a cup of tea, and we have now been married 23 years. So that's the unexpected opportunity is I actually met my husband on what I thought was a networking meeting. And actually, when I met him, if you spoke to him now, he would say, "I knew from the minute I saw you that I was going to marry you," because we were chatting and I would again was asking him questions like, "Oh, what was your favorite Kiehl's products? How do you know the people that work at Kiehl's? What was your experience like in New York, la la." And he would answer my questions, but then he would ask me, "What's your favorite movie?" "Oh my gosh, that's my favorite movie too, la la la." And I said to him, "You know what? This is a meeting, not a date." And he just was very friendly and asked for my phone number, and we had a lot in common. He found common ground with me, and he actually said to me, in 6 months' time, if could I meet you again? And I want to take you on a date. And actually, that's what happened. And I thought, I'll just stay in. I thought he was joking. So I thought, no, I have to be nice to this guy. He's part of my network now. He's someone very important to my brand. And so I thought, well, I'll just be nice to him. And I did. And it was very respectful, both of us. And then in the end, I did meet him 6 months later. And 23 years later, we are now almost 20 years married.
No, like this
I bet you
question.
weren't expecting that.
No, because this question has brought the most amazing stories. And thank you so much for telling me this because, it brings it's so much fun. And there is a lot of things that can happen from a network that are unexpected. But when you show up with your kind self, with your amazing vibe that all of us can have if we are on the right mindset, and, bringing your best foot forward, I think amazing things can happen. And I'm not promising marriage to anyone, but there are a lot of unexpected stuff that can happen. And thank you so much for sharing that. It's so amazing.
Welcome. I'm happy to share that. And I hope that also gives people some hope. But again, if anything, we always had a very, and even to this day, just very supportive with my work. So if I have products that, I need to put in front of a person, he does that as well.
Ah,
So,
that's amazing. No,
sometimes you can combine business with pleasure.
totally. That's so cool. Thank you so much for sharing. Charlotte, do you have any favorite networking events or communities? Give us your recommendations.
So I was think this is another good question that I had to think about. And there's not a particular networking event that I can say except maybe Art Basel. So the Art Basel just happened in Miami, as you know. And I go every year personally because I'm an art lover, I'm an art collector, and I like to go and see all the pop-up activations, see what brands are being there. Obviously, go see the art, meet artists as well, because a lot of times, I do brand collaboration. So, for example, Diptyque did an amazing holiday collaboration this year with an artist, Lucy Sparrow, a British artist. She's the only felt artist in the world. And actually, I've been collecting Lucy for many, many years. So again, you see how it can work. So obviously, I am just admiring what Diptyque has done with Lucy Sparrow, but I have done things with different artists. You may see the art in my background. That's Van Eyne. I actually did a collaboration with him when I was at the Body Shop. So I like to go to Art Basel and meet some brands. So this year I went to the Lamborghini party. I went to the amazing Moroccan, London-based photographer Hassan Hajjaj. He did an amazing 5-day pop-up with Capital One, which I thought as a sponsor, very good. I went to his event during during the day to actually see his tea room and his art. I actually got to meet him, which was wonderful. I went and I actually introduced myself. I went because another friend of mine who I know who's a fashion stylist, he's the one who got me invited to the VIP party, which was hosted by Anderson .Paak and Kay Trinata, which was pretty amazing to see. So again, I would never normally just go out of the blue, but because a networking peer had introduced me, and then I felt obliged almost to introduce myself. So I would say Art Basel is an amazing opportunity. Again, I would say that every opportunity is a networking
God.
opportunity. Even when you're in an Uber, if the guy is chatty, if the
Mhm.
driver is chatty or woman is chatty and you feel like chatting, sometimes you can meet the most interesting people. I have oftentimes, if I decide that I want to stay connected to them, I will give them my LinkedIn, for example. And because a lot of times Uber drivers are up and coming models or actors, or maybe they have their own business, side business, like a private car service. And I've stayed in touch with people like that because they become helpful to me, that I think, okay, this person, I know their style. I feel like I could trust them to come and help me with certain projects. But also, I did want to say another community that I really love is Her Campus. Do you know Her Campus Media?
Yes, yes.
I don't know if other people have spoken about them, but I love Windsor Western,
Mhm.
and her whole team, and I often go to their events. They host like Gen Z events, etc., and other brands go there and influencers, and then I will go and I will introduce myself to people, and I've always found it to be really interesting and nice people. And also for beauty, Cosmetic Executive Women is great. However, I do find that a lot of times their events are, well, the ones I have gone to, I know they do specific networking events where it's just drinks, but the events I usually go to, I get to see my industry peers, so I get to kind of reconnect with them. And there have been times where I've met new people because I've been sat on the same table. But I would say if people really want to network, to go to the proper networking events versus events, because you don't get a
Understood.
chance to talk because they're usually award ceremonies.
Yes, yes, those are amazing. And we haven't talked about those on other interviews. So thank you so much for showing us new communities. And next question. Do you have a question for me?
I do, Angie. I wanted to, just based on the conversation that we had, I wanted to ask what your approach is to networking.
Yes, so it has changed through the years. When I first started, I got straight to the point, and I knew, like, when I progressed, I understood that there is so much more that you can share with someone in order to establish a genuine and meaningful connection. So now I start, as you said, finding out things that we can have in common ground. Like, for example, for Brand Week, I started talking about like me bringing my kid to Arizona and to the resort. And it became such a thing because something else that I've learned through the years is that they are probably not gonna remember the company you work in or your specific job position, but they're gonna remember you for something that you share that is outside of your work or outside, your line of like your industry or something like that. And I got such a good response to that on that event. And I started saying, like, obviously, we're humans looking for connection, and
Indeed.
finding something in common is such a valuable thing to do because, as you said, I know that I'm not gonna be friends with someone when I meet them for the first time, but my attitude when I come to people to talk is a friendly attitude because that's my nature. And
Yes.
then it matches the first thing I say if it's not related specifically to work. So I think that I enjoy it so much more now. It happened after I had the baby last year. I couldn't make it to any events because I was taking care of him. And this year I started and I went to Cannes for the first time. I went to Brand Week, Advertising Week, and so many more. And enjoying it is such a big part of it because you can transmit that energy that you're having a good time, and everyone else resonates a lot more with you because you're having a good time. time. So I think that's really important, and it might take a little bit to get there to enjoy it, especially when you're like moving a business forward. But I think that it's totally possible and it can be done. So I invite everyone to enjoy yourself while you're networking. And because at the end of the day, your network is gonna perceive the vibe that you're bringing. And that's why I've been loving to have a connection with you, Charlotte, because from the very beginning, it has been so like you want to add value, I want to add value, and I feel like we're taking care of each other in a way. Yes, and thank you so much for that because it has been really valuable to me.
Thank you, Angie. And thank you for, answering the question for me because, again, I'm not perfect. I don't do everything wrong. So I always like to learn. And I love that essentially what you're saying is now I love that you're self-aware to admit that maybe you went in just, you were
Mhm,
too to the point, which I actually think isn't a bad thing because again, if
mhm,
you read the room, you can tell there's certain people who they don't want anyone to waste their time. Like, what are you going to do for me? Okay, fine. But then there's other people who, you need to build a relationship in order to
yeah.
gain their trust and and to get them to understand who you are so that they will make more time and make more efforts to support and champion. And that's why and so basically what I heard you say is that you are now showing up as your authentic self, and that
Mhm,
is even more successful. And
mhm,
I think that's definitely what I felt when I met you. I felt like you weren't just like some marketing salesperson
mhm.
or et cetera, et cetera. You were someone who is an industry peer who will support me and who I can support as well. So thank you, Angie.
That's amazing. Thank you so much for saying that. And last but not least, what advice would you give to women who are hesitant to engage in networking?
So my advice is I actually mentor four people who I'm very proud of, who are all doing very well in their careers. And all of them from the very beginning, when they just were I knew them as interns, they asked me, what can they do in order to really get their foot in the door to start their career? And I said, networking is the number one thing you need to do. And I said, it's your currency. That's what the way you need to think about it. As you build your career, as I mentioned, I've been doing this for over 20 years, and I'm so blessed to have an incredible network. And this is what sets me apart from other candidates when I'm interviewing for jobs or opportunities. And I do think there's a ton of people who maybe have the same education as me, same experience, but you know what? They don't have my network. So network is your currency. So if you are someone who's extrovert, just go to every single event that you can. It doesn't matter, even if you only go for 20 minutes. But if, sometimes, you're going to meet great people, other times you're not, but at least you got a great experience and exposure to an experience. But nowadays with digital, it's so much easier. It's like you, Angie. How did we meet? We met through LinkedIn. You wrote to me, I wrote you back. We had a conversation. So to me, I think LinkedIn is valuable so much. And then, just start slow, as I mentioned, go to events, don't put pressure on yourself. But my biggest advice is when you start connecting with someone, I personally don't think it's good to ask for their Instagram first, unless
Uh-huh.
it's an influencer, for example. And I've
Mhm.
had influencers ask me for my Instagram, and my Instagram is private. I actually have two Instagrams. One is like a work one where I'm more open and I don't post about my personal life. But at first I only had my personal, so I don't want to share that always.
Mhm.
So I
Okay,
do think
amazing.
don't start with that. However, if you feel you've bonded instantly,
Yes,
okay,
yes.
there's always exceptions to the rule, but
That's
I'd
a
say
great advice.
in general, don't go there first.
That's
Always
a
do
great
LinkedIn
advice.
first. And then after LinkedIn, you can direct message each other and then you can decide how you want to take it offline. And I've had people say, what do you prefer? Do you prefer email or do you prefer text message? And then that's the way you extend your dialogue. And
Mhm.
so to me, that is really important.
No, thank you so much for sharing your incredible insights, Charlotte. It's truly inspiring to hear how networking has shaped your journey. To all of you listening, reading, or watching, remember your network is your net worth. Stay tuned for more inspiring stories in our next edition of Women Who Network, Stories of Connection and Success. If you want to be part or propose someone else for this space, please email me to angie@growing.com. And until next time, keep networking and growing.